Hey, good morning. How's it going? I'm Ricky Stewart, and we're here for senior yoga in my house, in my front room. It's gonna be cool. So, I talk a lot of stuff. I talk a lot of science. I talk a lot about how your body works, and all of my yoga classes, all my mobility classes, everything I teach actually to do with exercise, is I put it onto you to learn what you've got going on. And you can learn where you're strong, where you're flexible, where you're not strong and where you're not flexible, and where you can kind of bridge that gap and get more control over your joints. A list of arbitrary hamstring stretches, so if I just constantly get you to stretch your hamstrings, I don't think that feeds your knowledge in how to move around in real life as well as it possibly could. And I love a classic yoga class. I'm all in for it. If I go travelling, if I go to another city, I'm going to look up and see if I can go to someone's like hippie, lovely, peaceful yoga class. But that isn't my voice. My voice is, I put it onto you to learn, and hopefully I can give you the tools so that you can improve your movement and move around better and stronger and improve on what you've got going on. I'm going to start it off by talking about our hamstrings. It's kind of the biggest deal. It's kind of our measure for how flexible you are is if you can touch your toes. That's kind of the thing. If someone says, I'm not very flexible, I can't touch my toes, that's what they say. So let's think about the hamstring and its job and what it does and how it helps us to move around. Now, if I come back here and you look at this, if I take a stride, if I take a step forwards, this leg goes into extension, but there's more than that going on because my foot's moving, my knees are moving, my lower back is moving, and my torso might do even rotation, but it'll be this way. Like this. There's a lot going on while this hip is in extension. And we all know that shape because you all take a stride and you all put that leg back, and your hamstring is part of the team that pulls this back. But also, the hamstring is the thing that does this as well. It bends our knee up the ways. So it flexes our knee. And it can also do both of those things at the same time if you run. Now, it's not the only player in the team of that movement. Your bum muscle, and like I said, your lower back, your calf, momentum, and everything could help make that happen. And just as importantly as how that leg going back behind you happens, there's the opposite of that, as when you pick your heel up to your knee and your knee comes up and you take another stride. You take another stride, and you take another stride. That's a running stride. It's a little bit less when you're just walking. But the opposite side, so it means your hip flexors, your knee extenders, so your thigh muscles, and the muscles in your belly, and that rotation all get the opposite action. And your hamstring stretches out as you bring this leg forwards. Now, if we just keep on jamming you into a hamstring stretch and get you to stretch more and feel a stretch and stretch more, I don't think that cuts it. I don't think that's enough for you to learn how this hamstring works. I want you to understand how the muscles in your belly and your hip flexors stretch this out, so that when you take a stride or you go walking and you've got to get up a steep hill or you've got to climb over some rocks or something, you've got hip flexors and abs strong enough to be able to pick this leg up and reach out and climb over things. So your hamstring flexibility is just as important as your hamstring strength to be able to find this posterior chain. So, about on time to actually get started with some action. Get yourself a seat. It could be on the floor and cross-legged. It could be on the end of your sofa if sitting on the floor is a bit of a struggle for you, or even if you just prefer this. I'm kind of flexible. I actually prefer this, just to get started and to check in with my body and feel what I've got going on. Just sitting on the end of my sofa is perfect for me. So relax your jaw, maybe even close your eyes, and only breathe for what you need right now, for the task at hand. That's just sitting and understanding what you've got going on in your body. And just checking in with where you're holding tension. As I'm talking right now, I can feel my toes kind of pressing into the floor. And that's not wrong, it's fine. I'm fidgeting, and I fidget a lot. Not like fidgeting like this. I mean like tiny little movements where I like check where I've got control And that's fine, but I want that to slow down. Close your eyes and just sit still and scan your body and understand what wants to move, what wants to stay still, what's hanging. Then work out where your breath is going. And feel your breathing apparatus. Feel this stuff all around here, all of the rib cage, the muscles in your belly, the muscles even in your back. Feel how you're sitting up tall and try and understand as much of it as you possibly can. Your belly pushes out, your belly draws in. And relax your jaw. Then squeeze into this little side bend. And your breath and your movement are completely separate. Like I said, I love a classic yoga class where they get you to do things like breathe in and breathe out. It feels nice, that rhythm, checking into that rhythm is lovely. But in real life, I want you to be able to breathe as much as you need for the task at hand, no matter what shape you are in. By shape, I mean like, are you like this or are you like this, not body weight or anything. So keep breathing just as much as you need. You're making this stuff around here feed that breath. Now try and find corners and corners, so you're pushing into the ends. And depending on where you put your focus, depends on what you feel. So the same movement can be different. We're going to play around with this idea a little bit today as well. So I want you to think about the closing angle, the closing side. So you kind of scrunch up like it's an exercise, like you're getting stronger at squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. And that's what you feel. That's what you notice. You're still breathing. Then I want you to think about this as a stretch. So as you peel over this side, you're feeling this stuff down your ribcage stretch. You feel it stretch. And you don't feel the closing angle, but the movement hasn't really changed. You've not changed shape. Your focus, what you're trying to do, changes. And neither one of those is right or wrong. So that's what I'm trying to get at, that there's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to every stretch. There's two sides to every exercise, or more even. Because you've got rotation as well. So if we rotate, maybe cross your arms over your shoulders and squeeze into rotation. And just to start with, just kind of click into end range, click into end range. So it's a start and an end, start and an end, and there's nothing much happening in between. But the stuff in between is the stuff that's important. So try and understand what's happening. Feel the muscles in your belly. Feel the muscles in your belly. Breathe. Keep your shoulders down. Try not to shrug. That's it. Then we'll do this same movement, but with a side bend, like this. In fact, let's try this like this. Put your thumbs just on your shoulders here. And pick your elbows so that you've got a straight line from elbow to elbow. Pull your shoulder blades together. And this top elbow reaches back as your bottom elbow reaches forwards. This top elbow reaches forwards, this bottom elbow reaches back. And see how I'm in this side bend. And I can breathe. And my shoulder blades are performing as part of the team involved in this lean plus rotation. So it's lateral flexion plus rotation plus breathing. There's a lot going on. Make sure your shoulder blades are moving. So one elbow forwards, one elbow back, one elbow forwards, one elbow back. Then try the other side. The elbows go in a straight line. So elbow to elbow doesn't change, but one forwards, one back, one forwards, one back. Try and get your spine to get good at every shape that's available in your spine. Very good. Yes. There we go. Then let's get into a bit of cat-cow. So you've got options here. If you are quite happy having your wrists at a 90-degree angle on the floor here, if your knees apart, you can go like this. Or, I'll just mime this, but imagine like the sofa was in front of me, you could have your hands up on the sofa like this. If your wrists don't like being in this angle, push your chest up and tuck your chin And think about the closing angle. So the muscles in your belly, your rib cage, and your sternum pulling towards your belly button. As you try and reach the middle of your back up, feel that stuff closing up, and then try and lengthen it. So you tuck your tailbone up the waist as your belly comes down, your lumbar spine bends, then squeeze shoulder blades together, and then look up. And think about trying to lengthen everything from your neck, from your collarbone, down to your belly button. Then tuck your chin, shoulder blades spread, rib cage up, pull up. Try and focus on this underside of your body for now. Keep moving. That's it. And then try and think about the back of your body. So going from the back of your head all the way down to your coccyx. Try and think about that. So if we push back up into cat pose, you're trying to lengthen that, and it'll probably make it feel different. You might find more range if you think about lengthening everything here. And then starting from the coccyx to lumbar spine, to thoracic spine, to middle of your back, shoulder blades, to neck. You're trying to scrunch everything up. You're trying to bring your rib cage as low as you can, but you're feeling all of the tissue in your back scrunch up. Tuck your chin, shoulder blades spread, rib cage up, tuck your tailbone. Keep this going. That's it. And slow this down. I'm probably going a little bit quick as well, but I want you to be able to just scan what I'm doing and then perform it yourself just a little bit slower, because I want you to feel like you're in control of each individual joint in your back. Each individual vertebra has its own job. Yes. There we go. And then coming up in standing, we'll get into these shoulder cars. So with these shoulder cars, which are controlled articular rotations, I want you to irradiate strength through your whole body and try and find strength in this shoulder. Just to show you what irradiation feels like, I want you to do 3 heavy shoulder press that you're just going to mime. So put your hand against your rib cage, thumb against your sternum, pull the elbow in tight and make this fist really heavy, and then fight as you push it up, fight as you push it up, push it back into this back corner, and then imagine like you're trying to slow it down as you bring down, you try to tense everything, squeeze your fist, going 1, don't let any power leak out, squeeze your torso with your elbow, 2, that's 1, 3, and then just let all that tension out of your body. Now that's really hard to do, it's a big ask of your body to be able to make that much tension, but I want you to find that as you do shoulder cars. So if you pick this arm up overhead like this, pull your fist back as far as you can, point your thumb across your head, point your thumb forwards and pull it back as far as you can. Pull your elbow into your rib cage, pull your hand into your rib cage and drag it down and back as your thumb points down. Drag down and back as your thumb points down. Hold it here, pull back more. Look how my chest isn't turning because I'm holding all that strength in. Pull it all the way back here. Reach up behind your back, straighten that arm out, turn your thumb to point up, turn your thumb to point back, bring it around, cross your chest, back to here, and forwards again. Bring it up, point your thumb across your head, point your thumb forwards, down and back, squeeze back further, up your back, straighten out, turn it back, bring it up, across your chest, and back, forwards, cross your head, point forwards, drag it down and back, go up your back, straighten out. So good. Keep this going. If you're not understanding which way your thumb's supposed to be pointing for where the rotation is, don't worry about it too much. The more you join in, the more you do this, the more you'll probably be able to find that stuff. God, it's exhausting. Okay, shake it off a bit, just reset. And let's practice that irradiation again. Because I want you to get good at being strong. When you need it, you can just hulk out, like you can grip everything on tight. So hold this fist here, make it strong as you drive up and back, lock this elbow out, Bring it back down. Keep hugging your rib cage with this other arm. It's only 3 reps. There we go. Okay, so we start this arm up, jam it up into this corner, and then try and find that same amount of irradiation. Watch how my chest doesn't turn. Point your thumb across your head, point your thumb forwards, and you're getting internal rotation in this shoulder as you drag it down and back. Bring it up your back, straighten out, turn, bring it up behind your ear, drag it across your cheek, across your chest, back here, change direction. Up here, point it across your head, point it forwards. I can feel my torso giving up a little bit on that irradiation. I'm going to try and grip on and teach this shoulder how to be a shoulder. Without this control, without this strength and ability to have coordination, there we go, to find where the shoulder works. No amount of stretches are going to fix my shoulder if I just passively put my hand against something and stretch it out like this and then do the same this way. Get any control feedback. I've not taught my body anything apart from how to jam it into a stretch. And sure, the tissue might get stretched here, but it's not taught my body how to control that. It's all just an outside force pushing myself into a shape. I don't get to be able to grip onto it, and that's why getting this stuff here will teach this tissue how to be stretched by the strength of all the stuff in the back of your arm, and you become bulletproof. Okay, so let's talk about these hamstrings then before we go into hip cars. So we know that a hamstring does this. That's kind of the main thing that we think about a hamstring's job is, but it actually does stability for your knee probably more. So if you can just balance on one foot like this, be near furniture or something, you're going to do some balancing, and tense your bum and look for hamstring stretch as you pick this heel up behind you, and look for hamstring stretch. You pick this heel up behind you, and see how my torso is staying long. I'm not reaching for the floor, I'm trying to keep my fingers away from the floor, bring it down, and then as I stand up, I drive this hip forwards, pick this knee up. So I'm feeling this hamstring do the thing. So go from stretch, and then use force to pull myself back up like this. So you pick inside this where you reach your hands back and you don't touch the floor now. And remember, you've got your sofa there for a little bit of help if you need it. So if you do it like this, that's fine. I want to see a rep where you try, reach your fingers back and feel your big toe control how you can get that heel up. Drive this forwards. And hopefully you can feel the stretch and the contraction, so that you can go from having a lengthened hamstring to that hamstring trying to scrunch up to pick you back up like this, and all the time your knee can stay sturdy without locking out like this. And even if you do it like this, look, if you just look for that stretch and play around, you've got your hand on here, you're still going to teach your foot how to do a footprint as you pick yourself back up. There we go. And then let's try this on the other side. So I'm just going to still face the same way. It doesn't change things too much, but I can still help here if I need it. Maybe you do your first one where you reach your fingertips to the floor, then pick this knee back up. And you're trying to get this back heel up as high as you can. And that floaty leg is still doing the same action. It's just not connected to anything. But this hamstring, this bum muscle, still needs to be in a team to pick up. You should be able to feel it when you get to here. Then maybe you reach your fingertips back, find your hamstring stretch, and then use all of this hip and this hamstring to pick you back up, and then reach it back, pick that heel up, find hamstring stretch. Oh, lost it a bit, and pick it back up. Lost it a bit again. Okay, come on, let's do this one more time. Yes, there we go. Okay, so think about that your leg is trying to control that balance. Your stability here, the stability in your ankle, the stability in your foot feeds that. I can make that look kind of easy with only one or two mistakes really in each one. And you might not be there yet, so you might need to really hold on and tune in to this foot staying connected to the floor, but that gets it. So then let's practice balance more as we go into some hip cards, and think about the action of your hamstring here as you pick your knee up. So this stuff around your bum stretches out as you make your hip flexor and the muscles in your belly on. Open this knee out until you feel this stretch here by the strength of these muscles here. And we try and internally rotate our thigh. So you pick your heel up until your shin becomes parallel with the floor like this. You drag this knee back until it's in line with the other one. You try and make this hamstring and bum muscle on. Squeeze knee to knee up, knee out, heel up, knee back until your shin is parallel with the floor. Knee back, knee up, knee out. You're teaching your body to do a stability everywhere, but this femur, this long leg bone, is reacting to your pelvis. Now, as we go into this other leg, I'm going to talk a little bit, and hopefully you guys can just carry on with the same movement without me giving too many cues. Your hip socket is on your pelvis. Your pelvis is attached to your spine. Your spine is in the team with your pelvis and your hip, and they share work out. So when we just did that exercise where you reached your foot back, you were sharing the load between your hip, your pelvis, and your lower back, and your whole spine really. So if your hip socket can't find the shapes that it needs for you to be able to do life, can't find the stability for you to be able to do life, then your whole pelvis will shift to be able to make those shapes. It will pick up any slack that your hip doesn't have. That is why everything is stable except for this femur in its hip socket, because we want this hip socket to be able to perform all of its tasks to the full capabilities of a hip socket, so that the lower back doesn't have to pick up the slack. So imagine, look, if I do a weird rep that I share the load out here, it's going to leave you with any of the discrepancies in strength and mobility that you had before. So if I pick this up and my whole pelvis curls under, so you can imagine my pelvis like tilting like this, and as I pick it out here, I've shared the load out into this other hip because I'm kind of leaned over to the side, and I've extended through my lower back, so I pull this knee back, I brought it back in, and my whole pelvis is moving around so that this hip socket here doesn't get its training in. Now, in real life movement, you always share the load. The pelvis, the lower back, the hip socket, they all share their load out equally as you take steps and as you pick things up, as you pick up your grandkids, your kids, whatever you're doing. And that's fine for all the real life movement, because you've got tasks to do. But right now, I want to separate this out. I'm going to keep your lower back still and make this hip be able to be a hip. And that means that when we do our hamstring stretches, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our lower back out of it. Even though in real life they share the load, for now we're practicing how to make this hip be able to do all of its stuff to the best of your abilities and further, so then you've got a lower back that doesn't hurt because it only has to do its lower back jobs and isn't picking up the slack for a hip that doesn't work. And I realise that was a lot of words, and we'll get into some actual action now. So if you sit on your sofa right at the end and you're kind of almost falling off the edge, but your foot holds you up, bring this foot up here. This is probably my favourite hamstring stretch, because, especially on a sofa, because there's stuff I can hold onto, there's things I can change. I've got a soft seat, it's kind of nice. But if you're not in the room that you've got your sofa or bed or whatever, then you can do it on the floor, and it's like this, or like this, or like this. Any of those are fine, and they're the same thing. But think about what shape your pelvis goes into. Maybe you can even budge up against the back of your sofa, because it'll kind of give you something to manoeuvre your lower back against. So we're checking in with what your lower back does, because what your lower back does feeds into what your pelvis does. And then we think about this hip socket as we pull ourselves forwards to maybe reach for our toes, ankles, knees, whatever you do. But try and feel, if you play around with it, if you bring yourself forwards and back, Are you just making your lower back do the thing? Especially if you've got your back up against the sofa, you might be able to tell if it's like all upper back curling over, but you still feel a stretch. That isn't really what I'm after. I'm after this leg being able to be out in front of your pelvis in whatever shape you want it to be. So you've got a bigger repertoire of movement. Maybe you can grab hold of your foot, maybe grab 2 fingers around your big toe, quite like that way, and try and drop your sternum in between your knees as you hinge. Lengthen your spine and hinge. And hang out here. See how this other elbow is just kind of hanging out. If you want, you could make this strong and pull your shoulders down and tense your belly and see how that feels if you kind of like really use a bit of irradiation and strength to be able to find this hamstring stretch, and I promise it'll change things. And then maybe you could just go passive and just kind of hang out again. But really, what I'm after is the tissue on the back of your thigh feels like it's getting a bit of a stretch. It doesn't need to be that you're holding onto your foot. I'm reasonably flexible, so this is kind of comfortable for me to hold. If you're like having to massively try hard to just get your fingertips on, then that isn't the one. Maybe just your hand on your shin or your ankle or underneath your knee or something, or work out that you can put your hands somewhere that feels right, even hands on the side of the sofa to maybe even pick yourself up a little bit. That might work for you. And not all of those things are right. Nothing's right or wrong. As long as you feel the right stuff and you're not hurting yourself, I'm fine with it. Now, let's just pretend like gravity flipped over and the floor was here on the sole of this foot. You're almost in the same shape that we're in when we were stood up and we tried to practice that balance, reaching back towards that floaty leg, and then you picked yourself back up again. So think about that. To stand back up, you pushed, you tried to open yourself up like this. Let's see if we can make that same connection to the connective tissues and make the same connection to those muscles as you drive your heel down. Push your heel down like you're loading up your hamstring really strong. Really connect to it as you drive this hamstring down into the sofa. That's it. I found Joey the cat. Want to Joey the cat's claws? Just shed a little bit there. That's cool. Thanks, Joey, for leaving that line around. Keep pushing this heel down. Keep driving this heel down hard. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. Going 3. Pull harder. Find more end range. Push harder. 2, 1, and sit up. Now, like always, I want you to be able to own it from the opposite side. So we want your abs and your hip flexors and the muscles in your thigh to be just as strong as you are flexible. So push your hands down into the sofa and then try and persuade this leg to lift. It doesn't matter whether it does or not, as long as that persuasion is there. Keep lifting, keep lifting, keep lifting, shoulders down. Keep lifting, hold it. Maybe find more hamstring stretch if you can lean forwards more. 3, 2, 1, and then hinge. And maybe now you can curl your back around and show yourself a bit of new range and explore it. Bring your torso across, bring it back, bring your torso across, and bring it back. So good. Okay, before we go into the other leg, just sit up for me. I want you to, especially if you're on your sofa, see if you can make your spine do these different shapes. So you do a little crunch like this, and then you peel back 1 vertebra at a time, a little crunch, and peel back 1 vertebra at a time. You're feeling the muscles in your belly be able to articulate your spine, and this leg's still in this position here. Yes, there we go. Okay, swap over to your other side. Remember, you don't have to be on the sofa, you can do this on the floor. It's fine, we'll work it out. Like I say, it's my favourite way to stretch this hamstring. So lean into it, breathe, find a little bit of comfort. Just hang out, work out what you want to do, where you want to be. Is this knee locked out? Try not to have it fully locked out. I want it to have a little bit of play, so you can bend it if you want, you can make force if you want. There's loads of different ways. I could even grab hold of the bottom of the sofa and pull myself down. Explore where your spine goes, so maybe you can bring yourself across, bring it across. And I quite like having my sternum right in between my knees. And can you make your spine long, like this, rather than being all curled up like this? Because remember, I want this hip socket to be separate from your lower back if you want it to be. When they work in a team, they work in a team. When they work separately, they work separately. And then you can share the load of life between your lower back and your hips. It's amazing. It works so well. When you get it, you have this new lease of mobility. But don't get me wrong, if you don't have that separation of hip to lower back, and this is the first time training it, you're probably not going to get it today. But that's okay. Everything has a long learning curve. Everything takes a good few goes. It takes consistent training to improve this stuff. So be alright with it. Be alright with it taking a little while, because it'll get there if you keep training it. So keep with this. Maybe your hands can go where they want. Maybe you like having your hands on the sofa, somewhere, anywhere that you feel like you're in control and you're not just dragging yourself into this stretch for the sake of a stretch. You're trying to understand how this tissue on the back of your thigh can work. Okay. Then start driving your heel down. Load up this hamstring. Get it strong. Keep pushing this heel down. Keep driving, driving, driving. Heel pushes down into the sofa and keep it up. Keep it up, keep it up. Relax your jaw. Breathe. Keep it up. So getting stronger, getting stronger. Push this heel down. While you're pushing this heel down, don't let go, but see if you can move your torso into different shapes and feel how different tissues get stretched depending on where your spine, where you lean. Keep driving this heel down. Keep driving. Then bring your hands either side of your thigh. Sit up a little bit and try and make the muscles in your belly and the muscles in your hip flexor be able to deal with lifting this foot. Shoulders down away from your ears and keep lifting. Keep lifting, keep lifting, keep lifting. Hold it, hold it, hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And stretch again. And keep stretching. That's cool. And explore it again. Maybe curl your spine around this time. And just see where your body can go. And then same again. Sit up. Just keep this leg where it is and explore where your spine can go. See if you're set up against the back of your sofa. See if you can curl your spine around. Go into extension to flexion, extension to flexion. I quite like having my hands around my rib cage because I can feel how stuff can move and how I'm in control of it. That's it. There we go. And then bring yourself back around into seated. So sit up as tall as you can, maybe even go into extension. So if you put your hand right in your lower back, imagine pushing your lower back forward, so your coccyx kind of goes back this way and your lower back comes forwards. And you've got this proud chest and you're almost trying to flip your rib cage up. Reach one leg forwards, put your hands just on the sofa like this so you can squeeze shoulder blades together. Then I want you to turn this hip into external rotation to internal rotation. It's which way your knee points really. Don't worry about your toes because that's too far away from the point that we're actually training. We feel this stuff in your hip as you turn it inwards and turn it outwards. So internal, external, internal, external. Keep squeezing shoulder blades together and keep rib cage flipped up. That's it. There we go. And then pick this knee up and do this pendulum swing. So you try and keep this knee where it is. You try and pick your heel up towards your chin. Try and pick your heel up out to the side. Pick your heel up towards your chin. Pick your heel up to the outside. That's it. That's cool. And then on the same leg, bring this ankle up onto your thigh like this. Keep this knee down this way. If you can't bring this up that high, if you bring this leg forwards, it'll give you the space to be able to do it. And maybe it drops too low and you can just hold on to it with your hand like this and pick it up. But either way, I'm going to try and find this external rotation and just hinge forwards, hinge back, hinge forwards, hinge back. I'm just going to explore how this external rotation feels. Remember, this is too much. Your hips getting snapped off, we don't want that. I don't want your leg to just be left in your hands, that'd be terrible. You can give yourself more space like this, and that's fine. Maybe you can hold on to this shin. Play around, finding end range, finding end range, finding end range. That's it. And then swapping legs. So drop this leg down, straighten this leg out. Your hip does internal to external rotation, internal, external rotation. Remember this, squeezing shoulder blades together, because we're just going to train our shoulder blades to go wherever we want for as long as we want them there. Because we spend a lot of time with our hands out in front. I want you to train it, having shoulder blades back, shoulders down. So you try and make your neck long. You find internal, external rotation. You're kind of checking in with the floor every time as this heel touches the floor. And pick this knee up, and this heel up towards your chin. Swing it out, and back up. Swing it out, and back up. That's it. Keep feeling this hip performing, squeezing shoulder blades together. Work out how to breathe, how to feel connection to this hip. That's it. And then bring this up. Oh, it's very, very tight on this side for me today. Maybe hinge forwards, hinge back, hinge forwards, hinge back. You might want this leg out straight to give yourself a bit more space. You might want to even just hold on to this leg like this. You've got a hold of it. You can use a strap as well for this actually. I should have said on the other leg. If you have a belt and you put it around your ankle, you've got something just to hold on to, so if this has to be down here because that's your range, and you can train it being here and being able to hinge forwards and out of it. Keep feeling this stuff really deep in your hip. It's this internal training that we're trying to feel, like where your pelvis is. You're trying to feel where your hip socket is. You're trying to train the tissues that are all very internal. It's not like doing a bicep curl where you're training the weight to be able to train this thing. You're trying to understand where your body, where your skeleton goes, what shapes it pulls into to be able to do our mobility work. And just hold it, hold it, and hold it. Go. Okay, so let's get into another philosophical kind of tangent. A healthy spine is a spine that can articulate. It's a spine that can move and get into different shapes. We know that. If your spine only does one thing, if you sit at a desk for a long time and you kind of curl over and you type and type and type for 8 hours a day, and then you go to stand up, your spine doesn't work very well because it's stayed in one shape for a very long time. A healthy spine is one that articulates. But if you lift weights, which you all probably should because it's good for us, it's good for our bones, good for osteoarthritis, good for health, good for well-being, then if you're lifting a heavy weight, then your spine shouldn't move. You should be able to do articulation. You also should be able to do stability of your skeleton. So let's have a little think about that as we lie down on our back. So if you lie down, you can lie on your bed even if to do this and it still works. I want you to hook your knees into your chest and feel what shape your spine goes into when it goes here. And keep it the same shape as you bring your legs out, so your heels are the same height as your knees. Take your hands with your fingers open like this and push your palms against the top of your knees, and then push your knees away with your hands, but your knees push back into your hands. So they're in a fight towards each other, so they're trying to do this. Hands are trying to go here, knees are trying to come in, but they're stuck here. And you'll feel the muscles in your belly turn on. Keep your shoulders down away from your ears. Try and almost put your whole forearms against your thighs. And you shouldn't be able to reach really. So keep trying to get your elbows close to your thighs and push your hands in and load this up and maybe push your heels together at the same time. In 3, 2, 1, and then just have a little rest. And you should be able to feel like you can make all of this stuff really strong. All the stuff around your belly grips on tight for you to be able to make strength here to keep your spine stable. Now, let's see if you can relearn that without the help of your hands, but we're going to use them to begin with. So, you push your hands into your knees and your knees into your hands and push as hard as you can. Put your heels together hard and ramp up this tension and keep this tension where it is. Abs are on tight, and then reach your hands up and still hold this tension. So you can hold and knit this stuff around your belly on tight and nothing leaks out. And then pull your knees back into your chest. And it's exhausting and it's hard, but I want you to get that feeling of being able to pull the small of you back into the floor and make your spine stable no matter what. Now, I don't normally do this exercise in yoga. There's not very much to do with stretching, but it does teach you how to move this hip socket without your pelvis moving. So you can then maybe transfer this into how you squat and how you move around when you're lifting heavy things. So if you put one hand against your knee like this and push and feel the muscles in your belly on, maybe your hand can come onto your belly button and you can feel like this connects. Straighten this leg up, drop it down and pick it back up, drop it down and pick it back up. And nothing shifts here. So the lower back doesn't like rock around. You can hold on tight with the muscles in your belly and make your hip be able to articulate without any movement from your spine. And then try that on the other side and see if you can do it. If you can't do it, you might need to move the floaty leg less. So if I put my hand on my belly, push my hand against my knee as hard as I can, and maybe it only looks like this. You only move this leg a little bit, and that's okay, because you're teaching this hip socket to be able to move your femur around without your spine sharing that load out. Now, if you come back up slowly, so you don't get a bit of a head rush, in standing, let's see if we can understand that in a way that kind of relates to yoga. So, if you sit a little bit like a really shallow chair pose, so chair pose is here, you're kind of in a shallow one that's about here, and you can push your footprint down and make the muscles in your belly tense, and you can put your hand on your lower back, hand on your belly, and you can separate out your lower back from this hamstring stretch, and then you sit back into your shallow chair pose and go back into a hamstring stretch and then back into chair pose. And you can understand how you can do this, and that's you articulating your hips here. So you're making that femur in this hip socket be able to find shapes without sharing the load out into lower back. But kind of is sharing the load, but your lower back's doing stability. And then maybe you can sit into a lower chair pose and not like curl your spine around or sit into the bottom of this. You can feel like your lower back as you sit in chair pose, and then maybe come up into a hamstring stretch and sit into a low chair pose and into a hamstring stretch. And your lower back doesn't move around. But it's hard. It's so tough to do. I know strong people who can squat with a big heavy barbell on their back that struggle with that separation from hip to lower back. But it comes from here. The whole belt of muscles around here can grip on tight and protect our spine, so that if you are lifting up something heavy, you don't like lean into your lower back and scrunch everything up here to be able to lift, because your body's looking for stability, because you can find it from here. And it becomes so much more powerful for our spines and our skeletons to be able to grip on when you want it, and then when you walk it can do all of the rotation and be able to be nice and movement based. But when you want it strong, you can just grip on tight. Cool. Okay, then come down into seated. And I realise that today's session has been very talky, a lot of talking about sciencey things. I kind of like it like that. I want you to learn. I want you to understand what it is you're working with and why you're doing these stretches and how they relate into how you articulate your body in movement, in walking and lifting and running and exercising, so that you can stay resilient and stay strong for your whole bodies and your whole lives. So we've still got a couple of minutes left, so let's still just sitting, I want you to shrug your shoulders up and feel what this feels like. Sit in it for a bit and kind of look around and feel like you're protecting your neck by lifting your shoulder blades up, and then pull your shoulders forwards and it's all a little bit weird and hunched. And then just see if you can do the opposite. Pull your shoulders back and down. Pull your shoulders down as much as you can. And then move your neck gently, ear to shoulder, your face looking forwards. Ear to shoulder, face looking forwards, and your shoulders stay down. Just explore this a few times. We're not after like brand new spaces that your neck's never felt before. What we're after is you just feeling tissue stretch. Feeling tissue stretch. Stretch, stretch. And then change it. Feel the stuff close up. Feel the stuff close up. Closing up. Closing up. Breathe. Move slow. Then tuck your chin, so you make a bit of a double chin. Then do this movement, and it'll feel different. Keep your shoulders down. And then do rotation. So just upright rotation for now. Anything you can hear, like sliding and moving in your neck, hopefully, it's pretty normal. It's just because your neck's near your ears, that's the only reason you can hear it. So, then look up, rotate, rotate. Keep looking up, rotating, then look down, rotate. It's like you're kind of sliding your chin across your collarbone. There are infinite shapes that our neck does. So many variations on rotation and tilting and looking up, looking down, and it's endless the amount of shapes that are available to these parts of our spine. It's cervical spine here. But if your body doesn't use something, it loses it. So if you daily taught your neck really gently how to move around, you wouldn't even have to lean into the strength of it. You wouldn't even need to like really push into the corners. If you just taught your body that it's got these shapes, and you don't then have to use your eyes to look behind you. So if you only ever do this look, my neck is barely moving. Whatever you don't use, you lose. So if you teach that neck how to do all of the stuff, like progressively over a long period of time, then hopefully when you do something weird, like I think everyone's crooked the neck by yawning and looking at the same time because their neck's never had the jaw open and moved at the same time. It can be vulnerable. It's a vulnerable place. But if you teach it slowly, and hopefully it'll improve. Because if you use it, your body remembers how to do it. Think about, I always come back to this, that someone who can play guitar can hammer their little finger down and hold a string that's reasonably heavy. They can hold a lot of force with that little finger and move their other fingers at the same time while holding time and possibly singing at the same time. That is strength. In an exercise world, that is being strong. Because if you can squat and keep your spine really still and articulate your knees, your ankles and your hips and move weight that's more than your body weight, we know that's strength. Obviously that's someone being strong. We all know that. But if you look at someone playing guitar, they're not being strong as in they're lifting weight, they're just being good at holding one muscle on tight so it can do stability while other muscles articulate and make joints move. It's strength. It's the same thing. You need to practice it and get better at it until you can do it. That's it. That's what yoga is. I want you to be able to articulate your joints while one bit holds still and strong and the other bit articulates. And then, hopefully, we teach our body to get better. But it's got to come down to knowledge. It's got to come down to you understanding it and not me just leading you through arbitrary poses. doesn't quit. If I just got you to touch your toes and just hold it and didn't explain what was happening and what cost are you touching your toes, and where are you like having compensations, where are you helping yourself, where are you potentially going to hurt yourself. That means that you get to understand what you have going on, and then you can teach your body more stuff, and it becomes way more exciting for me. Okay, bring your hands down onto your knees, soften your shoulders, and just fidget a little bit. Close your eyes, relax your jaw. Let your tongue sit heavy. Breathe. Track that breathing. Check in with your body. What is clinging on? What is doing stuff? That's it. And bring your palms together. Thumbs to forehead, tuck your chin. Roll forwards. Namaste. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you all so much. I hope you enjoy the week. Thanks, Elaine. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I will see you all next week for more stuff. On a Monday, I have rest-based training. On a Tuesday, I do calisthenic skills. So that's handstands and hand balances and things like that. But it's for everyone. You don't have to be able to do a handstand to do the class. Work out wrist mobility and things like that as well. And then on Wednesdays, you know, I'm here for yoga every week at 10 a.m. I will see you all next week. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you got fun stuff. Got blue skies here in Scarborough. I hope it's nice where you are too. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.